Hello, my name is Joey Jäger.
And I'm Paul Mellendorf.
I'm Adam Perryman.
And I'm Levi Kiffmeyer.
And first thing we're going to do is pull up our project proposal. So we wrote this at the beginning, and it said that we would like to create a simple application that utilizes a back-end database for a fictional storage company called Jäger Solutions LLC. We will also create a rudimentary UI that allows the user to interact with the database. Ideally, the user will be able to add, delete, and update the database. Due date, of course, December 9th, 2017. So, we kind of split this whole project up into 4 different phases: the concept development phase, the design phase, the development phase, and the QA testing phase. So the other thing we had in the concept development phase was just our assignments and what we were going to be working on within the database itself. And I guess I should also elaborate a little bit. What exactly is Jäger Solutions? It's basically like a unit storage company. So these were our assignments for creating the database. I was in charge of creating the locations table and all the different attributes and the data for it.
And I was in charge of the customers and the customer detail tables.
I was in charge of the employees' details, how to contact them.
I was in charge of the units and the details that went with them, and then the data to populate the tables.
All right, cool. So now let's move on to the design phase. So we've got a couple different images that you'll obviously see later on when we demo our application. But then we had a couple different versions of our different diagrams when we were trying to map out this actual database. So we had our version 1 ER diagram, which was just very, very simple. We changed a lot of things. Obviously, in an ER diagram like this, you don't have primary keys or foreign keys, which is what we were able to do once we started the relational schema. And Levi, do you want to talk, or does anyone want to talk through our different versions of the relational schema?
So the first diagram and this one are both pretty much the same. This one is just the schema with related foreign keys and primary IDs as the underlined bolded ones. And if you want to go to the next version, point out. So this one, as you saw before, the previous versions didn't have the details tables for employees, units, or customers. Well, or details for units and the contact for employees and customers. So after some design implementation, we discovered it'd be easier and more ideal to have separate tables for those. So this is the second part of our design phase. And then go to the third one. Go to the one auto-populated. This is the final schema auto-populated by our C# program once we connected the database to it. So there are a few changes within location. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the second ER diagram we had.
Yeah, and then this is like fully normalized, all of that. And yeah, Visual Studio automatically made this one for us based on our create statements. So that kind of concludes our design phase. So then moving on to our development phase. So obviously we split up the different tables, and each person was responsible for creating the create statements and then populating the data with the insert statements. And so all of these are kind of just everyone's own take on it, and you'll be able to see this as we will share the this Google Drive folder with you. But basically everyone kind of just went off, did their own thing, and then we came together and we were able to put together V4 creates and V4 inserts, which I'll pull up here. And this is just all of the create table statements together, obviously with the primary keys and the foreign keys. And I think we had a candidate key here or there. And then obviously we've got our final version of all the inserts. We wanted to make sure we had enough data just so we could run different queries on the database and everything. And as you can see, I think we have an ample amount that we can do different where clauses and everything. So that kind of concludes development phase, unless anyone, Paul,
Yeah.
I guess Paul has something to say.
Yeah, as you can see on the top row, the data varies from our last creations. On the second row, we kind of had to make some changes because all the data didn't work, but all the data on the second row should work just fine with the database.
Oh yeah. We didn't realize quite so much that we had to really make sure that everyone was aware of what the different primary keys and foreign keys were, just so that we could keep that the same throughout all the different tables and make sure that worked. Anything else?
And the different kind of coding that is involved with the different databases.
Okay,
Oh,
some
right,
use
yep.
MySQL, some use-
Yeah, MySQL, the syntax is a little bit different, so we had to make a couple minor tweaks to some code. But that concludes our design phase. So then moving on to the development phase, which is what I was just looking at. So that concludes the development phase, and we're just going to move on to the QA testing phase now. And I'm going to throw it over to Levi again, who's going to talk through a little bit about some of the problems that arose while we were developing this database and how we overcame those challenges.
So the first thing we were having trouble with is deciding what kind of program to use to implement the database with. And we ended up settling on C# after some contemplation over that and Access, and took us a while to learn it, but we eventually got it to the point where we could complete a program and connect the database to it. So we got over that. And the next major issue we came into was working with parameterized queries within the units table primarily. We attempted for quite a while to make one to show us all the available units by finding all of the tuples that were missing a customer ID, which meant that they were not being rented out. But after some research and a couple failed attempts, we finally got the parameterized query to work and gives us the correct tuples in the program. And we also added another query to return the full database so you can look at all the tuples. And the last problem was we had some issues with getting the icon to work in the in the top corner. Although it may seem trivial, it took us better part of an hour or two to find the right images and figure out how to transfer them to the correct data type and then put them into the program and implement them into the form. But we eventually got it. So
yeah,
continue.
it's amazing how fast something, like once you understand how to do something, it can go so fast. But learning it in the first place and truly understanding it and getting it to the point where it's working and you're able to replicate that can, take an exceedingly longer amount of time than you may have originally been anticipating. So moving on to that, we also have some documentation just about how we did the publication on this. So basically, we initially were trying to publish the application, and when it was asking us how users install the application, the options were, well, do you want to use a website? Do you want to have connected to a server? And the third option was basically from a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. And so we figured that was closest to what we were going for, but unfortunately the only thing that would yield us was an application manifest file, which was not enough to actually run the program itself. And so we could not really figure out why that was happening. And then we did some poking around within Visual Studio and saw that there's some kind of integration with this website called Hockey App, which my understanding is kind of like a professional repository for developers, and then they can kind of distribute their packages to beta testers and whatnot. And that's integrated within Visual Studio. And so going through that, we were able to publish we were able to publish the application on this website, this repository, Hockey App, and then we were able to give access developer access to everyone, so we were all able to go into the website, and then through that we were able to download the files, and then we were able to run the database locally on our different machines. Now, the one thing we realized was that for whatever reason, it worked on Paul's laptop, Levi's laptop, and my PC, but Adam, we kept getting an error when Adam was trying to run the application, and we're not entirely sure what that is. We thought maybe it was
It was something to do with Microsoft framework. I don't
yeah,
think I had a
something with like the .NET framework or something. But we personally believe that it should work on everyone's computer, and we just think that it was something specific to Adam's computer. And I will also note that this whole hockey app thing was a little interesting to me, just for my traveler's internship, where I was working with people, deploying their code all the time, and the build and deploy with the packages and everything. And I just thought it was sort of interesting. And so we kind of talked through our functionality documentation, publication documentation. Do we want to go into hockey app now? And I think that's the next thing to do here. So we're just going into the hockey app website to show kind of what that looked like. And if I can remember my password here. Okay, so we basically have this here, and I'm able to see, okay, we've got some downloads on it. You've got some cool statistics here. And then if you just click here, you're able to download it. And that was completely unrelated to our project. So you can just also invite users, which is what we were doing to invite each other. We've got one version, 1.0, build number, a lot of stuff that I worked with over the summer, which is cool. And then you can see the different users we have. I guess Levi never accepted, but we've got that. And that's Gucci. So we're going to go into where I downloaded it. So we downloaded it, comes in a zip folder or whatever. You extract it, get this, and then what you're going to want to run is the application, this one. So when you do that, and we're crossing our fingers here and hoping for the best, there we go. I think the first time, since I had already done this before, the first time it says like, oh, this is an unknown publisher, do you still want to proceed? Obviously we're not a well-known publisher or whatever, so it's something like that is gonna come up, and then it's just like there's this maybe a security issue, and you just go through that. And we did find that the first time that you load the application, sometimes if you clicked on one of these, it would load, maybe take like 10 seconds to load or something, but then it would go through, it would show the data, and everything else seemed to be functional. So it really seemed to be like the first time that we would open it up, that it would take a little bit longer. But so does someone at this point want to start talking through our user interface, and then we can each kind of talk about our own part of this? Does someone just want to describe this
Talk about
UI?
the J at the top and how fun it was.
Yeah, mention that. Paul, do you want to talk about that? I don't know, just describe the thought process behind this, maybe. Who this is intended for, stuff like that.
Yeah, this is just intended for the customers.
No, it's for the employees.
Employees. Oh goodness, yeah. Just kind of to give it a little bit of life. Give some
Talk
fun
louder.
pictures. What?
Talk louder.
Just to give some fun pictures. To give it a little bit of life and energy. As you can see in the top right, we have an icon that took a while.
Oh,
to
top
make.
left. I think you said top right.
There's an icon, and that took a while to make. Yeah.
Like another thing that might just seem super rudimentary, but just clicking tab just clicking tab just goes through the 4 different options, which might seem super trivial and super simple, but it's like the little things that can sometimes take a while to figure it out. Or even also, whenever you open a new form, having it come up and be in center screen, that was another thing that took us some time to figure out, and just these little things. So we're going to go to employees, and we're crossing our fingers, hoping for the best. Beautiful. And Paul, I believe Paul is going to walk us through this, and then the additional form here.
Yeah, so as you can see earlier in the tables and design phase, there was a certain amount of information we needed. I kind of took the employee ID from The North Central student IDs, how they have 6 digits, and that's why I implemented 6 digits in there. Social security number is always 9 digits. And employee contact ID is just a random number, also 6 digits. As you can see, you can scroll through each one individually or go all the way to the end or beginning. You can also organize the information by clicking on the employee ID, security number, and employee contact ID, and organize or find data that way. And then if you select a certain table, it comes up in the text boxes above to make it a bit more readable. Then the plus bar should add information. If you want to add it in the bottom part right there, you can add it. You can also delete information with that X button. And if you accidentally have done something that you didn't want to save, you click the save button, so you can save what you have done, so that way if you accidentally do delete or add information that you didn't want added, do not click the save button, just refresh it or exit out, and that should do everything. So here we are on the employee contacts, and this is pretty much just the same exact thing. Employee contact ID just has their first name, last name, address, number, street, city, state. We decided we wanted the 3 locations of our business to be in Sioux City, Iowa, Casper, Wyoming, and Miami, Florida. Tried to actually look up the zip codes for that. I couldn't find a zip code for Miami, so that might be a bit off. And the area codes for the phone numbers as well. So that is it for the employees and employees contact info. And now we will go to a different table that someone else made.
Which one did you do, Levi?
Units.
Okay, I want to end on that one then.
Go to customers.
Yeah, so Adam's going to go next with customers here.
So yeah, Professor, I worked on the customers table, and so basically just going alongside of Levi's, because his was kind of the master, I created some IDs. I believe it was 1 through 15, and some IDs, just instead of 1 through, I added a 10 to make it 100. And credit card number, I used varchar. I used 16 because a credit card is 16 digits long. And so, yeah, moving on to just the UI is pretty much the same that Paul was talking about. A lot of the features are the same. You can scroll through. And, yeah, so we have, I believe it is 15, right? 15 IDs. So going on, here are some of the customers. Just Bob Smith, got to have that usual name. And phone numbers, I used a varchar. I believe it was 15 as well. Let me think, 5, 7. Yeah, right?
That's 12.
12. I used 12 because I counted the dashes as varchar. And so, yeah, we have that. I threw in some unique names and some no names. We have Ethan Schlegg. We have some people from our class. Got Levi's lady, my lady in there. So that's kind of some of our customers that are currently invested into our company.
And never mind. Never mind, that's a guy. All right, yeah, so that was the customer's contact information, as you can see there. So I'm just going to do locations next. One was really simple. Same kind of format, just we're able to utilize data sources within Visual Studio to populate this. And we've got the 2 different types of views here, the grid and the more standard. Yeah, we have 3 locations currently with Jäger Solutions. 1 in Iowa, 1 in Wyoming, 1 in Florida. Same locations as where the employees work, and yeah, just follow the same format as everyone. And we're gonna do a little bit more of a demonstration here with Levi's, I believe. And so I'm gonna give it away to him.
Alrighty. So for units, we have the 2 parameterized queries I was talking about earlier to show open use, so we'll do that one first. And it just finds everywhere customer ID is null or we do not have one linked, therefore is no one renting it. And so after clicking that, you can do it by location if your customer is at a certain location. And we have show all units to go back to all of the units that are in our system. And with unit details has the ID, detail ID that is linked to the unit table, has whether or not it's heated, bool value 1 yes, 0 no, square feet when the lease ends if a customer is renting it, and the price per month. So you can organize those according to each one if you desire.
And I think the lease end, that was also a date
Yep.
data type, right?
Yeah,
so
the
we're
lease
able
end
to
is
run.
a
Okay. Yep.
date if you want to add it. And this one also has functional as well because we have, let's see, we have 30, so we'll make a new one that's 31. These are, let's see what we'll do. No heat, 30, 50. All right, and we can save this one. And if we want to make, the reason I did that is, oopsies. If we want to make a new unit, we are detail ID is a required value. So if we want to make a new one, that's, let's go with 11 at location 3. Without a customer, we have to have a existing unit detail for it to work, which adds it into that too. So that's the unit and unit details tables.
Awesome. Yeah, and then we've got the cool little combo box here as well. All right, thank you so much, Levi. All right, so moving on from there, we've kind of demonstrated everything with this. We also, like Paul, I think, mentioned, we're assuming that this is used by the employees at the company. They kind of have an awareness of how this works, so they're not just going to start adding random information. That's kind of one assumption that we made. Also, just back to QA testing, we have the zip folder here, which you should be able to theoretically download here and then run on your computer if all goes according to plan. Yes, we can also. I can invite you, and I can do that after we're done recording here. But I can invite you to be a part of as a tester or whatever for the application here on hockeyapp.net. And then we also have this folder, which I'm going to download real quick. And this is basically just the actual solution file, I believe, in... or wait, I'm not sure what this is.
No, that's the original one we tried before.
Oh, okay, right.
Hockey app.
Yep, so this is actually the, whatever it's called. I think this is the application manifest file. But what we can also, what we can still add, which I thought we had added, but I guess we didn't, was the here it is. Being stupid. So we also have this folder here, and this is basically, ignoring that icon, I'm not sure why that showed up, but we basically have the solution file for Visual Studio. So if you want to, go in through here and actually open up Visual Studio and look at all our different code that we wrote, and the different you pull up the the code designer or the view designer and being able to see kind of how we use the UI there, or different properties for our controls. You're able to do all of that through this. We just figured we should include that as well. And is there anything else that we have forgotten to mention that we need to talk about?
No, I think it's a good representation of the program.
Levi thinks that it's a good representation of the program. Pretty simple. Obviously not like a ton of functionality, but just being the first time that we've tried to actually do something, it's really cool that we have an actual, output, an actual application, like a tangible thing, not tangible, but standalone, like a thing that you can actually look at, that I can actually share with someone and be like, hey, like, we designed this, we designed the back end and the front end for this application, this program, and other people are actually able to, use it, albeit it's really simple. It's for a very specific purpose. But I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I'm happy with how it turned out, and I think I am speaking for the group here. So without further ado, thank you for listening. I will send you an invite to our hockey app repository, and thank you, and have a great day. And I'm gonna stop recording now.